It's all about humanity. About humanity. It's all about humanity. About humanity. It's all about humanity. It's all about humanity. About humanity. It's all about humanity. About humanity. It's all about humanity. It's all about humanity. About humanity. It's all about humanity. About humanity. It's all about humanity. It's all about humanity. About humanity. It's all about humanity. About humanity. It's all about humanity.
Good morning, model citizens. Welcome to Humanity Junction. My name is Heath. This is Hangout with Humanity. And I realized I need to do some firmware updates, so I thought, why not do them live? Nisi's saying she just did the update, so if I've got any problems, I know who I'm going to be asking, because it didn't go so well the last time I tried it, but I did get it working, and I think I've got everything I need set up ready to go, so we should not have any issues. And I'm sticking to that story, and while I stick to that story, we can see on the left side, I've got the model railroading live streams. If you have a live stream or have a regular show and you're not on the list, please send myself or John at Schuylkill River Valley an email, and we'll get you added. Let's check in real quick and see who is joining us so far this morning. We've got Lee from Anfield Road Layout in the Loft, Anthony Dodge, the Model Train Outsider. Did I say that correctly this time? We've got Osmerica Model Railroading, Artie Zero. Are you from Australia, Artie, or do you just model over in Australia? We've got Keith checking in from CANP. We've got Colin Wykes checking in. Dad Cooks is here as well. Nisi is saying, oh, sorry, Heath, different updates. I'm having audio issues with YouTube. So your updates were for your audio issues, or your updates were your Digitrax Zephyr? Maybe we can update your Zephyr on the stream live today. That should be interesting. Lauren Hurwitz joining us as well. We have Alan from Alan from Mason-Dixon Railroad. If you don't know, Alan used to be jumping someone else's trains. He's now Mason-Dixon Railroad. We have William from New Fenris Railroad joining us. We have Anissa Johnson, also known as Nisi J, checking in from Seaboard and Air. Norman Rowe is joining us as well. Welcome, Norman. We've got John from Schuylkill River Valley in the house. Steve Childers is here as well. And Rich Trains and Things taking a break from his man cave and joining us over here. And I am back. Hopefully I wasn't gone for too long. Sorry about that. Always a little bit of an adventure with these programs sometimes, but yeah, didn't see your show. Leave us a comment and we'll definitely get you added. Uh, I guess a couple things just to mention. I am hosting Sidetrack Sunday this weekend. What I thought we'd do is it's going to be a little combination of things. I might have a guest on for part of it, and for the other part, what I thought would be fun is to do sort of a Sidetrack Sunday themed Q&A. So questions like, is a hot dog a sandwich? If you robbed a bank and then had to flee the state, but now you had all this money and could move anywhere you want, where would you move? Just sort of those fun questions that I like asking, and I thought people could ask me. So we will likely do a little bit of that on Sidetrack Sunday as well. So Auth America says, yes, I'm in Australia, model both American and US. There we go. Almar's just jumping in. I see him coming in as well. So let's talk about what I'm going to do. And if everything goes as planned, it should theoretically only take minutes. And if it goes as planned, then we can just wrap this stream up and shut everything down. But as happens a lot of times, things don't ever go as planned. So what I've got is I've got a DB150. This is an old Digitrax command station. So before they called them DCS command stations, they were it was a digital booster. This is the last command station that they called the DB. They went to the DCS 210 after this, but this was cheap, and this is all I really use it for, is this programming. And yeah, I mean, hey, you know, Steve, if you want to start it off placing your bets, and I'm assuming you're referring to super stickers, you're more than welcome to do that. But yeah, people are asking if Steve's giving odds. So the DB150 is going to be the command station that I use for these updates. I'm going to power that with a PS 515, which is a 5 amp power supply. The DB150 is not an opto-isolated booster, so I cannot use this on the same railroad with my DR5000 because I don't quite understand all the technology, but basically they'll short each other out. I can use this though as like an accessory booster or something, as long as the as long as you don't cross the streams. So the power supply does plug in right here, and I've got it all wired up. And theoretically, I guess if I turn this over the right way and plug this in, just beeped. And there's a little switch for HON and O and G. And there's also a switch for mode, which is run, OP, and sleep. So I'm not really sure which mode I need to be in, but if it worked last time, you know. So Keith is giving $1 for every hour he thinks it'll take. So $5 super sticker or super chat. Apparently he thinks it's gonna take 5 hours. Stephen Rowe says, I have lived with that name for 71 years. Pretty used to it. I don't know what I'm not sure what name we're talking about there, but yeah. Steve Childers, 30-minute minimum is what Mr. Childers is going for. So we'll see. Norman says he's already lost. So to program a throttle, you need to basically hook a command station up to a computer. So I'm using this Digitrax command station, and I'm going to show you how I'm going to hook that up to a computer. Ah, yes, we're comparing last names. I got you. Yeah. little behind, but I get you. I saw somebody saying a PS515 is NCE. This PS515 says Digitrax on it. I don't know if you can move it over a little bit. It's a little hard to see, but you can kind of make out the logo right there. So this guy is definitely Digitrax. NCE may also have a power supply called the 515. Unfortunately, I don't know. I don't know what NCE probably is as well as I should. So yeah, so command station, and then what I have is these two look the same, but this one is a PR4, which is my USB interface. So it does a bunch of other things. You can use it as a sound programmer. You could use it for a programming track or a test track. I'm going to use it just as my USB interface. This is my UR93. This is my wireless device that'll enable me to connect these wirelessly. This is one of the items that I'm going to update the firmware on, as well as updating the firmware on the DT602D and the UT6D. So these are the three items that we're updating. The command station and the computer interface is what we're going to use to hook everything. Rich, thank you so much. I say 1 hour. There we go. So we got 30-minute minimum, we got 1 hour, and we got Keith saying 5 hours. If this takes 5 hours, that's going to be interesting. So the other thing that we need to do is download some software, and you'll go to the Digitrax website and you'll download this this file, Soundload Installer 252exe. When you run this, oh, I gotta click on it over here. When you run this program, it'll install SoundLoader and install the Digit Monitor, which is a LocoNet monitor, and it'll install Digit IPL, which is the program that's actually going to do the programming today. So interesting. The NCE and the Digitrax PS515 are the same item with different labels, and that makes a lot of sense. This is probably, designed for DCC to some extent with some special filtering and stuff in it. So it, worked out probably for Digitrax and NCE to buy the same ones. So I'm gonna hook up this PR4 using a USB, one of the, the old like printer style cables, the big fat USB ones. And I'm going to plug that into my computer. And I did test this yesterday, and theoretically I should not have to restart my computer if I've done this all correctly. And so on the back of this, let's just switch these real quick. Oh, that didn't work. Why won't it let me switch it? Well, let's hide this for a second. This guy has a USB, I believe that's a B on it, and 2 LocoNet ports on it. And the UR3 just has a power and 2 LocoNet ports. The power on the PR4 is actually here on the side. So if I plug this in, you can see some little lights start flashing. I just noticed, has Stream Elements started posting any of my timers yet? Oh, I realize I didn't have it on. I just turned on the, join in on the stream. If people do want to join in, the link should probably pop up. in a little bit. So now I've got this connected to my computer, but not connected to the command station yet. And what I will show you is if you open up, and this is what I always do, is I open up SoundLoader first, because SoundLoader gives you much better indication of whether this thing is connected or not. So if you look down here on SoundLoader, it says check PR3 DC power supply. PR3 and PR4 both show up as the same thing on in SoundLoader, so it is a PR4, but it sees the PR3. But if you notice, it says it's not plugged in. So I'm going to unplug one of my throttles, and I'm going to plug it in. I'm using a PS14, which is one of these PS14's one of these little guys over here. Digitrax uses the same little power supplies for the throttles, for all these little pieces. They all use the same item. And I did the wrong thing. So now if you see here, PR3 connected and ready. If I unplug it, it goes back to saying that I need to plug in the power supply. So for SoundLoader, for loading sounds, you need to have it plugged in. For doing updates, firmware updates, my understanding is you do not need it plugged in. But, I usually plug it in because I've had so many issues. It being plugged in seems to work. So, and the other thing I'm going to do now, which doesn't tell you if it's connected or not, but we'll know when we try and start programming, I'm going to connect the command station to the PR4 with a LocoNet cable. It's an RJ12 straight through cable, and that's what's gonna send the data to the PR4. So we have a command station connected to my USB computer interface. The computer interface is powered, connected via LocoNet. The next thing we need to do, the next thing I'm going to do, is I'm going to try and update this UR93 first. I'm hoping that this is going to go easier than other things. Mike says he still has to update his Zephyr Express. Well, Mike, follow along. If you want help, turn yours on and let's walk through it. As basically you're just going to follow the same process that I'm following. And Container Man showing all kinds of support. Will I blow a fuse or the grid for his city block? I'm hoping neither, but I can't guarantee anything. Bernard C., thanks for coming in and joining in on the fun. So I'm going to use a second LocoNet cable, and I'm going to connect the LocoNet out of this into this. So now I have all my LocoNet stuff connected, and I'm going to take my second PS14 and I'm going to plug in the UR93. So now I've got the UR93, got this, and I got this. Now we're going to go back. So the setup, the physical setup is all done. Now we're going to go to the computer, and we're going to take a look at one other thing. So SoundLoader shows that we're connected. We don't actually need SoundLoader anymore. What we actually need is this DigiIPL. But before we do that, I want to show you. Something. This software here, DT602 31 March 21 DNF. That is the firmware update for the throttle. Actually, I don't know that it's going to update the UT throttle. I need to check that. That might just be for this throttle. Which is interesting because, anyway, this here, UR93 September 21st is the firmware file that I'm going to use to update the UR93. So let's open up DigiIPL. We're going to check so the COM port is set. We're going to set, it says .dmf file not loaded or valid, so we're going to select the file, and we're going to go and look in my Digitrax folder for the two DMF files. We're going to select this file, and now it's ready. So it's ready. We can click Find Devices, and you can see here it's recognizing the UR93 and it's recognizing the PR4. So that's a good sign. That's a really good sign that everything is working as expected. Jason, hopefully we're not going to fry the throttle. That's why I'm doing the UR93 first, so that I fry that first. But yeah, hopefully not frying the throttle today. So the next thing to do is basically just hit the start button, and we'll see some stuff start moving. And oh, actually, you know what? Let's see, UR93 serial number software version is 0.0, which let's see if that changes. I don't know if that's going to change or not change. So let's hit start, and it says programming. So I think that's a good sign. Mr. Jimbo's Trains, you're not late. You're just we're jumping in. We're just starting to program the UR93, and hold your breath, everyone. What Digitrax says is sometimes it won't update, and they say if it doesn't update, to just keep reforcing the update. And they even say that if you've bricked a device, that theoretically, if you just run the update again, it'll fix it. I haven't tried that out since I've gotten the Digitrax DB150. When I was doing this with the DR5000, it seemed to not recover from the brick. But yeah, we're getting there. Nisi, welcome to the world of audio. That's always a good thing. Yeah, so is anybody else here watching right now Digitrax users, or is everybody here just waiting to see if I screw something up or not? And while we're waiting for this to program, I'm taking a look at something over here on the side. I just want to leave this run for a second, and then I'll screen share something different just to show you where I got all of these files from. So there we go, ready. So let's click Find Devices. Oh, I need to click it on the correct screen. And UR93 still says 0.0. So I don't, I have no idea how to know whether some of these updates work, except for the fact that it's still working. Let's see. Yeah, see, both places it just says identify. Maybe if we hit discover again. Oh, it didn't crash. It still seems to still be on. The throttle, let's hide this real quick and go to the overhead look. The throttle is connected. You can see this DT, you can't see it. Focus. Up here in the top, that DT whatever with the little channel number there, that's showing that it's connected to the UR93. So best I can tell, It is actually connected, but let me do one thing and see. I'm gonna hardwire it to the UR93. Sometimes it needs to reset itself. And okay, so right now, if you notice, we don't see it up here at the top. When I disconnect the UR93, there we go. It comes up and it shows that it's connected on channel 15. And it was red, and now it's not red. So I feel much better about that. So Jason, how do you update the firmware on an NCE Pro Cab? Because all I'm doing is I'm just sending a file to the device, which is actually really, really simple. Good question. I'm not sure I know the answer. My understanding is that firmware is more something that like runs. I don't know. Any computer people in here want to take that one? Because I don't know. Maybe Steve Childers knows the answer to that one. What's the difference between firmware and software, Steve? So there's no firmware.
I didn't know you brought me up.
I've been talking to you, Steve.
Yeah, firmware is embedded in the handheld device, thus it's firmware.
Yeah.
Whereas software is on your computer.
Yeah. Mason-Dixon Railroad Allen says firmware is the parts you can kick. So yeah, it's the physical thing, whereas software is more of the something that runs on something. So I'm a little confused by something. The Train Freak is saying that he doesn't have to, that there's no firmware to update with NCE. So if there's no firmware to update when new features are released, how do you add new features to your NCE software? Because on Digitrax and on DigiKeys, they add new features all the time. So does that mean that if I buy a NCE system that it can never be updated?
Well, I've never updated my Digitrax. It wasn't until, and maybe I can, I don't know, but I've never had to. I don't think it was until you got that new style throttle.
Yep.
And initially they had a bunch of issues with it.
Well,
so
it was just the first firmware version. I mean, that's all. Yeah. But like if NCE came out with something and then they wanted to add more stuff, it's according to Osmerica Model Railroad, you would actually have to open it up and swap the chip inside.
I don't know.
Man, that's wow.
Or the other alternative is you don't have access to the new developments on some of the older throttles.
Wow. Yeah. So with Digitrax and DigiKeys, you just update the firmware and you get the latest stuff. I didn't realize NCE was so far behind the times in that goes that you just can't update stuff.
But the old Digitrax was the same way.
Correct.
So,
that's true. But in 2021, you should be able to update the firmware on your devices without having to take them apart and remove the microchip on the.
You just buy a new one.
Well, I get right.
Or you just go to Y throttle or engine driver.
Yeah. So yeah, he says it's an easy swap with NCE. Yes. With Digitrax, I just download it and upload it, and I don't have to wait for anything to show up in the mail. It's a very simple process. I mean, let's get into let's do the other one. So I just plugged in. Oh, I guess I should have showed you before I switched. So I just plugged the throttle in. So I removed the UR93 and plugged the throttle in. And let's zoom in. The fun thing is when the throttle updates, the lights blink on it. So that's That's kind of amusing. So we're going to go here. We're going to select the different file. I'm going to select this DT602D throttle file. We're going to open it. Let's click Find Devices just for fun. Discover. Yeah, there it is. DT602D. So it's found it. And now all we're going to do is hit Start. And you can see the throttle is flashing as the programming goes up. You see the throttle is flashing. That's how you know it's updating. And North America, I had my NCE throttle now for almost 16 years and changed the firmware twice. Yeah. See, I've changed the firmware on this throttle a couple times just because people wanted things changed. They wanted, the power functionality to change. There's soft buttons on it. So the way that the soft buttons change is through firmware updates. They changed a feature on it where it used to go to sleep very quickly. So now with just a simple firmware update, I would just be disappointed if I had to get a new microchip every time I wanted to do a little update. Yes, this is a fancy throttle. Mr. Jimbo's Trains, NCE is in stock. What specific NCE item are you looking for? Give me the item number and I will see if my person has it. Yeah, and I guess with NCE, right? I mean, if it's working and if you don't care about the new features or any of that kind of stuff, then awesome. I'm a little bit of a technophile. I don't know. I like tech stuff. The basic starter set, which I'm assuming is the NCE power cab. Oh yeah. Let's see. NCE power cab complete DCC setup. Yeah. Looks like it's out of stock with my guy too.
A lot of the electronics stuff is.
Yeah. I can get you a DR5000. I think I can get a DR5000. Yeah, I can get you a DR5000. So, oh, there you go. Pfeiffer Hobby has it. The reason I didn't get NCE is because I just felt it was way too limited for what I wanted to do. The DR5000 has LocoNet, ExpressNet, Railcom, Wi-Fi, and USB all built into it. So you don't need any additional devices. It's all in one unit. And for $200, the same price as a power cab, everything is in one one device. So, Andy, I don't know NCE well enough to know the answer to that. I know some of the changes that Digitrax makes are just interface changes. Like, for example, they move a menu setting from one place to another just to make it easier to access because people were complaining about, whatever. So the DigiKeys DR5000 is compatible with NCE throttles. There is a cab bus converter that you can get for it. But I like more open systems. So, yeah. And, DCC products are compatible with each other, just not throttles to command stations. But yeah. I'm not changing my system until the locos run on batteries. Yeah, I know, right? It's so funny. People are so I love how I love how people are so much like, I'm NCE and you can't convince me that anything is better than NCE.
See,
It's so
and
funny.
same holds true with Digitrax people.
Oh, I hate Digitrax. I think, I mean, it's just as much of a pain in the ass as everything else.
And
And again, that's why I use DigiKeys.
Like I said 100 times, if you use JMRI, it doesn't matter.
And I use JMRI also, right? So that's what, with this throttle, I can, hook it up, through the JMRI and use it with my DR5000, and it's all compatible. That's what I like about the DigiKey system, is you're not limited to anything. So, yeah. So programming. Lee, give me a second. Let me finish this update, and then I'll bring it up. Rail Pro or Rail Com? I'm not sure what Rail Pro is. And I don't know if Digitrax does Railcom or not. I can tell you that DigiKeys, the DR5000, does do Railcom. But I don't know what Rail Pro is.
And I don't know about NCE, but I like Digitrax and all the different add-ons.
People are saying you're echoing, but I don't hear you echoing. I don't know why.
I'm echoing to myself too, but I've got YouTube muted.
Do you have echo cancellation turned on?
Hell, I don't know.
Click on the little caret next to the little mute button. I had both systems, NC and Digitrax. I prefer NCE over Digitrax, and yeah, I mean, oh yeah, Sprague. There you go. That's pretty cool. Railcom. I don't know if Digitrax does Railcom or not. Does NCE do Railcom? Oh yeah, Rail Pro. That is true. Somebody just said Rail Pro is from Ring Technologies. Yes, I forgot about that. I know Iron Planet Hobbies, now that you say that, sells Rail Pro from Ring Technology, but I don't know. So another reason I like DigiKeys is DigiKeys has two-way communication with Bluetooth now. With this guy. The DK5018 is two-way, and a lot of their stuff is now going to be, Bluetooth two-way communication as well. The throttle, man, takes forever to update. So what I'm wondering... Oh, okay, so Andy was asking earlier... I didn't know DCC could do two-way, they just don't. Is Railcom two-way over DCC? Or is it a different... Alright, so NCE does not do Rail Pro or Railcom. I don't think Digitrax does Railcom, but the DR5000 definitely... the command station I use definitely does.
So let's see if I'm...
New member, thank you, Mr. Rowe. So people were asking, so it updated, and now when it boots, let's hide this. When it boots, it should come up and say that there's a new. Oh, I guess I didn't really have to unplug that. When it boots, yeah, it says now March 2021 software version. So very quick, very easy to update. Let me look at this. Window, share. So people were asking what the changes were. So they've implemented switch key off messages for momentary accessory control. They added a fast clock alarm hit feature, and they modified the CV programming ranges. So there you go. Now, what I don't know, what I'm curious about, oh, here we go, UT6 firmware. So I need to download this UT6 firmware for this guy because it looks like entertainment, Digitrax, save. So it looks like this guy does need a different piece of firmware. So, oh, now Lee's gone, but Edward's here. Oh, Edward's not here. Edward's space is here, but Edward himself is not here. So let's now get rid of this. Hello, Edward.
Hello.
I see your little blue ice ball over there.
Yep, and I'm also testing out my BlackBerry as a webcam.
Oh, cool. I didn't know you could do that with a BlackBerry. Stephen Rowe, thank you so much. Pair character punching the air with fist and bump written on. Oh, that's funny. So that's a super sticker that you can all see in the YouTube chat, but when it comes up here, it just describes what it is, which is so funny. That's too funny. Yeah, so this guy updated easily. So let's plug this guy in and let that guy boot up. And we're going to go over here, go to the screen. We're going to go share this screen so that people can see what I'm doing. So now, if we go to Find Devices, we can see the UT6 pops up. So that's a good sign. We know that's connected. We go to Select File. We go to the UT6. We open it. And we click Start. And it says it's programming, but it's not flashing. So hopefully that's working. So let's see. For the UT6, it says it's a maintenance release with adjusted duplex timing to improve interoperability with UR92s. UR92 is the older version of the UR93. The UR93 has extended range. Does anyone do anything with LCC? I do not. The LCC thing is kind of interesting in that, Lee, you're on screen. Don't pick your nose.
I'm not picking my nose, I was waving.
LCC, late, but oh well.
LCC is an interesting conversation. The NMRA is working on an LCC standard. And then there's somebody else that I don't know who it is that's basically building their own LCC standard because they don't like the way the NMRA is building their standard. So we're getting to this place that we're going to end up in the same place O-scalers are, where O-scalers have, DCS, they have TMCC, they have legacy, they have all kinds of things. And I'm concerned about that.
Yeah, the big loser is the hobbyist.
The big loser is going to be the hobbyist. I don't like that LCC is only an accessory bus. I mean, when you have something like Railcom that's two-way communication with your locomotives that sends back, the DCC address, so instead of just block detection, you can actually know where your locomotive is on your layout. I think Railcom's great. So why are they developing LCC to be two-way communication of your accessory bus and not developing something similar to Railcom where it's two-way communication for everything? So yeah, I don't, I mean, yeah, Andy said, there's such a thing as tech just for the sake of tech. It's the end user experience and enjoyment that counts. I started a little series that once I move into my new office, that I'm going to keep going, that I call Tech as a Tool, Not as an Obstacle. And I find too often, especially with this device here, that, these phone devices, that too often they are obstacles and hindrances, and not really good. What is the train freak saying? If you really want to know what system is best for what you're using, contact those vendors and see what systems they use. See, I disagree with that. I 100% disagree with that. Never ask a vendor what system they recommend. Because if I call up Digitrax, this is a pet peeve of mine. This is a huge pet peeve of mine. I worked for a manufacturer for 6 years. They made some really, really great products. But if anybody called them up and said, what product should I use? What's the best product for this situation?
It's whatever they sell.
It's whatever they sell.
Yep,
I call up
that's true.
Soundtrax, the best decoder for that locomotive is going to be a Soundtrax decoder. They are never going to recommend another manufacturer's decoder, even if their decoder, and they know their decoder, is not as good. If I call up NCE and say, what is the best DCC system, NCE is going to say ours. Never, ever ask a manufacturer or a vendor what is the best thing for my situation, because they'll always tell you their product.
Even the hobby shops, online or brick and mortar, they're going to recommend whatever they sell. And if they sell more than one, they're going to recommend whichever one they have a better margin on, typically.
100%. 100%. And that's huge pet peeve of mine of the whole. I have a hard time with sales. So I'm a project manager. A lot of my job is selling to some extent. But I have real issues with salespeople when, it's not for me to say Digitrax is better than NCE. It's my job to say that Digitrax has these features, and these features offer you, these features will meet your needs, or whatever. The train freak says, I guess I didn't word that statement correctly. Hey, if you wanted a rant today, you got a rant today. Oh, too funny.
So you taking over for Tom?
Yeah, right, exactly. I may need to start. This is my second rant that I've had, I think, on my channel. Both on Fridays, I think, actually. Both of my rants were on. We're on. Alan says rant mode off. Turn rant mode off. The best way to find someone around you using that system on their layout, go check it out and see for yourself. 100% agree. I would even say that if you're new to the hobby and you're not sure yet what features you really want, get the system that somebody near you is using that can help you operate that system.
Absolutely.
Part of the reason I went with DigiKeys is because my local club is a Digitrax club. So they're all LocoNet. So I didn't want a Digitrax command station, but I wanted something that was LocoNet compatible so that I could get stuff that would be compatible with what my club used. So I can take my Digitrax throttles and use them on my system at home or at the club system. So somebody asked earlier, I'm like rambling, not letting anyone get a word in edgewise.
I'm actually being quiet for once, Heath.
I know, we all appreciate it.
I ain't been. This is the first time I've been up since I've done my live stream on Sunday. This is my second time back up in the loft.
Oh, there you go. So Andy says, if I ask my dealer to recommend something, he does not always recommend what he has the best margin on. And that to me is a good, that is a good dealer.
Yeah, but you probably already have a relationship with them, Andy.
Yeah, that's true. And so Jason's saying, contact Soundtrax, Athearn, Atlas, Walthers, any vendor who doesn't manufacture a DCC system, and see which DCC system they prefer to work with the equipment they manufacture. And again, I'd a little bit argue that they're going to work with the company not that's just the best, but that they get the best prices on. And stuff like that as well. So I'm going to play a little... I got so many things in my head. If you notice, the UT6 throttle update just ended. I'm going to... let's turn the throttle off. Let's plug it back in. Let's go to overhead.
One of my determining factors was what the club nearest me ran.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah,
That way
absolutely.
you take your throttle and run at the club. So.
Yep. So I don't know if you saw it. It came up very quickly, but it said April 2021. Man, need a really big screen. So it's 20 minutes after the hour, 21 minutes, 30 seconds after the hour. I got two throttles, a UR93 updated.
And no sparks.
No sparks. I didn't blow anything up. And
You're doing better than me.
So we're talking about relationships, and I do just want to me, the most important thing when you're asking somebody a question is the relationship that you have with that person. If that person is only a person that you buy stuff from, then, you know, that's kind of the relationship that you have with that person. The reason that I have the channel sponsors that I have is because I built relationships with them before I actually bought stuff with them. I mean, Iron Planet Hobbies, I probably talked to Ryan for a month before I bought anything from him. And he was very helpful throughout the entire process. Daniel, thank you so much for coming. Really appreciate you being here. I'm glad you got to see me do something successful and not blow anything up. So Iron Planet Hobbies, relationship for a long time. CMR Products, had a relationship with them for a while, you know, called them up, talked to them, discussed with them, you know, their stuff versus other stuff. Nick from PGH Train Fanatic, you know, I've known the guy for a long time now, you know, interacted with him a bunch, you know, so I think it's building relationships. Bernard C. Yeah, I got to bring this up. So, the updates were completely painless now that I know what I'm doing. And let me play this. This is just a 45-second little video thanking individual supporters, thanking my channel sponsors, and all of that. Please support the people that support our channels and enable us to keep YouTube being YouTuber. thank you so much for watching that. So Jason's heading out. Martin's asking a great question. Okay, let me go back to a couple questions from earlier. Halo Burning saying, where did I get my polo? One of Ken Patterson's channel sponsors is Gelsma Graphics. Gelsma Graphics does a lot of this embroidery for various railroad type things. So Denny Gelsma, it's a family-owned business. Really good guy. He basically said, you know, send me your artwork. If you don't like it, don't pay me. Sent me all the stuff up front. You know, very easy to work with. I got the stuff. I got a hat to cover up my bald spot so I don't fry my head, and I've got some polos, and I really like those polos. It's not raining here. Heath, you may have sold me for my next build. Woohoo! Woohoo! So let's see.
Checks in the mail, right?
Yeah, exactly. So how did I find Iron Planet Hobbies? If you can't tell, I'm a little bit anal.
No.
I'm a little bit of a control freak.
No.
I do a lot of research. And when I was at the club and they were all Digitrax, I was like, okay, I'm going to go with Digitrax. It's not, you know, it's not really what, you know, all the systems have their issues, right? But my local club was Digitrax, so I was going to go with Digitrax. And then I started looking around for what other LocoNet compatible things I could get. And I started looking at, you know, DCC++EX, and, you know, I started looking at ESU, and I started looking at all this stuff. And then I found DigiKeys. And Ryan at Iron Planet Hobbies is the US distributor of DigiKeys. And for about a month straight, I asked him constant questions about, you know, Digitrax does this, can DigiKeys do it? Like, why should I get the DigiKeys over Digitrax? Why, you know, why is the DigiKeys better than NCE? Like, why, like, what's the deal with it? And somebody just said that they like NCE because they don't need multiple boxes, just plug in and go. Plus, it does everything I need. And I agree with that, which is why I got the DR5000. I don't need a separate wireless device. I don't need a separate USB device. You know, it's basically the box and a power supply, and it can do everything. You know,
There's pros and cons to that logic, though.
Correct.
Yes.
If something goes down, it's one box that's going down. Which is why, though, with LocoNet, you can have distributed control, right? Because that's the whole point of LocoNet.
Yes.
So the way I found Iron Planet Hobbies is that I asked him question after question after question. And if you haven't seen his website, or not his website, his YouTube channel, he has really, really good how-to videos on NCE Power Cab, on Norman, TMI. He has really good videos on NCE Power Cab, on Digitrax, on DigiKeys, on ESU, on you know, all kinds of stuff. So I liked that he was giving away all this free information about all of the different systems. He is a user of all the different systems. He's not just a dealer. He's got a huge layout. And here's another thing. Do you need a separate track just for programming locos? With a DR5000, you don't, well, you could always do what's called programming on main. But with a DR5000, the programming track has drive on, drive off. So whereas, you know, in a lot of cases, people need to like have their programming track switched from programming to main, I can just drive my loco onto a section of track that's wired as my programming track, and I can drive on, drive off without doing any changes. So
You can do that on any system as long as you isolate it.
my understanding is you can't drive on, drive off on Digitrax. You can maybe do it with NCE then, but with Digitrax,
you can drive to it and then pull it on. You're right. You can't drive.
Right,
your programming
correct.
track, you cannot drive.
Right. What I'm saying is with the DR5000, I can type in my locomotive address, drive it all the way into the center of my my programming track.
I had audio problems with my headphones.
I would program it on the programming track and then drive it right off without having to throw any switches or make any changes. And here's a big one, right? For NCE, I can get warranty and repair parts locally instead of sending it to the US. And that's huge as well.
So it's still isolated though, correct?
Yeah, you double gap the rails. You would double gap the rails on both sides, but you can just drive it straight on. You do not need to, with Digitrax, you would drive it up to it, and then you would have to flip to programming and then drive it on. Yeah, so with NCE, you can't either. So that's one of the big features I liked of the DR5000 is you could just... you don't need a programming track the way people think about programming tracks in Digitrax and NCE. You can just take a section of your layout and make it your programming track because you can drive on and drive off just like any other thing.
Well, I would have to say there's an advantage and a disadvantage with that, because if you accidentally leave, I think if you accidentally leave a locomotive that you don't want to program on it, it winds up being programmed along with it if you have like two or more.
Correct, but if I've got 12 inches of programming track, it's not likely I'm going to have multiple locomotives on it.
Yes.
So.
Well, I mean, for my stuff,
How
I went.
does it? I don't know.
Well,
how
I
it
wound up
knows to just program that one section of track.
Say that again, Andy? I'm not sure.
Andy or me?
Sorry, Steve. I didn't. So I was reading Andy.
And
I was reading Andy's comment because I was trying to. Andy was saying, "Got your point, Leslie, but we ain't all like Heath." And I was trying to see what Leslie's comment was, and I couldn't figure out what Leslie said that led to that comment. So I said
Yes.
Andy and Steve. Okay.
So if LocalNet is active on the programming track so that you can run your locomotive on it, how does it not program? How does it only program on that section of the track? Since the two are interrelated, I don't.
Yeah. So the programming track would be double gapped on both sides.
Yeah.
The track wires would go to your layout, and then your programming output on your command station, right? Because you have track outputs and programming outputs. Your
Right.
programming output on your layout would go to that double gapped isolated section of track.
Well, what's keeping that programming information from jumping back on the power feeds to the rest of the layout?
The rails are double gapped.
Okay, but you have to have power coming to that
The
12-inch section of track.
What system do you have?
Digitrax.
So you know how Digitrax has a track output and a programming output?
Yes.
That programming output provides that track feed. So you don't need to have your programming track connected to anything, right? And it gets power.
But if all you have is that programming feed connected to the track,
You-
you cannot run the locomotive on that programming track.
With DR5000, you can. That's what I'm saying. On the DR5000 system, you can. So like Boulder Creek Yard is saying, the command station only sends the programming code down the programming leads. Correct, but on the DR5000, the command station also sends the track commands down the programming leads.
It's
Yeah,
like
so,
you gotta have something built in that's only one way, so that it can't backfeed.
Well, it's within the command station of the DR5000, the track outputs and the programming outputs are opto-isolated. Which means, so I just remembered what it is. On the DB150, it's got a common ground. On most modern, I don't know if that's correct. On a lot of the modern boosters, the outputs are all opto-isolated. So, on that, the track output and the programming output are opto-isolated from each other so that the signal cannot cross from one to the other.
yeah, the signal's one way with a optical circuit.
And this is why, this is one of the big things that Leslie's saying. The programming track uses minimum current, so no blue smoke. With the DR5000, as I think with Digitrax and NCE, you can program, or I should say, you can set the output that you want. So if you have N scale, you could set it to 0.5 amp. If you have, HO scale, you could set it to 1 amp, or whatever you want to set it to.
Yeah, I think that I guess from my understanding with Digitrax, because I have a Zephyr, as long as I don't destroy everything.
Yeah.
But it has the programming track, which right now I'm not really programming because right now I just recently got all the track together and all that, so I'm sort of kind of testing it to making sure everything is working properly and finding out that, well, I probably should have used new track instead of old track to use everything. But once everything gets cleaned and all that, then I'm going to actually, instead of having it just nailed down, actually have it glued down. But every system has its advantages and disadvantages, and also what you're trying to do. I mean, I myself, you're basically in the screenshot right now. You're looking at, I want to say, maybe 75% of my layout. So I don't. It's
right, so you don't need anything. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually turning around and I'm actually going with homemade manual switches because all the controls are going to be like right here.
Right here, yeah. So Andy's comment just made me understand Steve's comment. If a locomotive is splitting the gap between the programming track and the track part, there's no issue if you're sending track commands. If you are sending programming commands and you have a locomotive one half on the programming track and one half on the track,
back in a minute, Heath.
Okay, Lee.
All right.
You're not going to have a problem because they're opto-isolated. But I guess that's you need to make sure the locomotive is completely within the programming track when you do the programming track. But because the outputs are opto-isolated, it's no different. It's no different than if you had a huge layout and you had two boosters, right? Like when you have two boosters on a layout and you're running a locomotive and that locomotive crosses from the one booster to the other booster, there's a moment where that locomotive is sitting on both track sections. So that is why I cannot use the DB150 and the DR5000 together, because the DB150 has a common ground and the DR5000 is opto-isolated. So if I used those two separate devices and crossed the gap with a locomotive, then I would get a short and likely damage something. Because the DR5000, the track outputs and the programming outputs, and all the boosters that they make, and the DCS210 Plus and all these, they're all optically isolated boosters. Then you can run from one section to the other. Yeah. So I looked at, there was a question earlier about these two devices, right? The PR4 versus the UR93, and why I need both of them. And then this comment from Boulder Creek, the PriceBrog 3 version 2 with the programming track, which, funny you mentioned that. I was looking for it not too long ago as well, and I could not find it. But the PR4 is very similar to a PriceBrog at the lower amperages. You can use a PR4 to power your programming track up to, I think it's 800 milliamps or something like that. But you can't really, so you can use it, you could use computer software like JMRI hooked up to a PR4 connected to a piece of track as your programming track. So you don't need the programming output on your main command station if you want to have a programming track on your bench. You can just use the PR4. So the reason I got the PR4 and the DB150 and the power supply is so that I can use this as a desk setup. Actually, I don't even need this. I don't need this. I can use the PR4 on my bench to program and test locomotives. I do not need anything else except for the PR4 hooked up to my computer. Does that make sense?
Yep.
The UR93 is what's that NCE Wi-Fi thing with the? It's like a box that's like this big with a whip that comes out the center of it. That's what the UR93 is. It's Digitrax's version of that NCE
Wi-Fi
box. Yep.
Yeah, I've got both of those.
The UR93 is duplex. It's Digitrax's proprietary duplex wireless system. So the compatible item to a ProCab is the DCS210 Plus. The DCS210 Plus has a USB interface. It's got the programming input, the programming output. It's got LocoNet and/or NCE cab bus. It's got it all built into one. But if I have that set up on my layout and I need to do something on my desk, I don't want to have to disconnect my ProCAD system and bring it up to my bench to work on my locomotive. Instead, you can get a PR4, you can get a Sprague. I'm guessing you said you had a Sprague, right? So I'm going to guess that you use the Sprague on your bench to program. There's no UR94. It's just the UR93. It's a PR4 UR93. I don't need a 210 Plus. I have train controller that does all that stuff. Others use whichever. Yeah, you don't need a 210 Plus. I can use train controller and a PR4, and I don't need anything else.
Now the PR4 is Digitrax, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, that's one thing I actually had to get because I can't Unfortunately, I got the Digitrax DCS51,
Yep. Yep.
which was apparently I bought it probably about maybe 6 months before they came out with the 52, which has a built-in computer interface. And the reason why I went with Digitrax and all that for such a small layout was for sound. I mean, if it wasn't for soundtracks and stuff like that, I would have went with just pure DC.
Does NCE make sound decoders? I don't know the answer to that.
I do not know.
So Leslie says with a power cab, it's easier to move between layout and bench. And I agree. I have the DR5000, which is an all-in-one box, just like the power cab. And just use that. Andy, you said you don't even need a PR4. What do you use on your bench to program locomotives? Like when you're not next to your layout and you're on your bench, what do you use? It's, all of these add-on components aren't needed at all. Like you say, you don't need room for extra components. How do you use NCE's Wi-Fi without an extra component? It's not built into a power cab. You need that little NCE box with the thing out of it. So the UR93 is just the box with the antenna. It's just a smaller little footprint. That's all.
And all the PR4 is a computer interface module.
Correct. Yep.
Okay. That's all it is.
Yeah. So the PR4 is a computer interface module. The DR5000 has a computer interface module. I don't need this. So here's one thing people need to understand. I love technology. I love learning about technology. I don't need any of this. Nobody needs any of this. I could have done all of this with just a DR5000. The reason I got all of that stuff is because I like learning about this kind of stuff. And
it does give you some flexibilities that you didn't have with your other.
Huge amount of flexibility by having this stuff. I'd love to get myself an NCE power cab or a pro cab, but more likely due to cost, I'd get the power cab. Because I'd love to learn both systems. I'd love to be able to have both of them.
The Digitrax Wi-Fi module. I've got the PR4.
But again, like, you don't need those things.
No. The PR4, I love JMRI. Okay?
Yep, me too.
And the PR4 allows me to interface with JMRI. So.
Yep. Well, so a PR4 allows me to interface with JMRI. With the DR5000, I don't need a PR4. It's not required. I don't need anything. So Nisi has Edward's talking about he has the DCS51. I think Nisi has the DCS52 maybe, which is Digitrax's version of the power cab. Basically, it's just it's a throttle like the power cab.
And it's got
it's basically sort of like how an older controller would work. I can only control one locomotive at a time, but then again, that's what my eventuality would be, is that I can just use just one locomotive at a time.
And here's the thing, Edward, you can control more locomotives at a time, and I'll tell you how in 1 second. Nisi says, how do you guys keep this stuff all straight? You don't need to keep all this stuff straight. There are people around like myself that love talking about this stuff and will always help people keep this stuff straight. And at the end of the day, you only need this stuff if you want this stuff. You don't need any of this stuff. The DCS51 and the DCS52 if you want to run multiple locomotives using that device, they have 2 throttle inputs. So what you can do is you can take your Tech 2 MRC unit,
Yes.
and you can hook it, you could sit it next to your DCS 51, and you can have 2 additional throttle handles into your Digitrax Zephyr and control 3 locomotives. You can have 3 locomotives on the handles with a Digitrax Zephyr.
Yeah, because there's the I'm not sure if you can see it or not, but you know the jumps, the jump connections.
Yep.
And the thing is that yes, I had the capacity, but at the same the layout is only really designed for 1 locomotive. So
Well, there
that's
you
what
go.
I meant
There
by only having 1 locomotive.
Currently, it only handles 1 locomotive.
That's correct. Yeah, it's one of those things. If I ever expand and all that, you know, then I might go that extra route and all that. But right
You will in
now,
time.
I just need 1. But
Yeah.
as I said, I went with Digitrax not for control. I went for sound.
Yep. Yep. Now, so here's another thing that people don't really understand. Well, I'll get to that one second. Martin says, if all else fails, read the directions. And really quickly, Andy said, on my bench, I have a Sprague. So the reason I got the PR4 is I got the PR4 instead of getting a Sprague. They're about the same price. They do the same things. One's just made by Digitrax and one's just, one's a Sprague. So
I don't know what a Sprague is. Does that allow you to download sound files and program new sounds in your locomotives like a PR4 will?
it does not let you do the sound files, but it lets you do all the. It doesn't let you do the sound files. It doesn't let you program the throttles or program the UR93s, but it allows you to program CVs and all that kind of stuff through JMRI.
And if I remember correctly, it requires a computer for its interface.
Right. Yeah, which is what the PR4 is. The PR4 is a computer interface, just like a Sprague. I learned stuff, but I forget quickly. Yes.
Like
yeah, it's one of those things of where Digitrax you can have you don't need a computer because you got the you got your command stations, whereas the Sprague cannot operate by itself.
But if you have
a Sprague I thought a Sprague can power 1 locomotive. I thought it could drive a locomotive on your programming track.
That I'm not sure. I do, from my understanding with Sprague, there, I was actually looking into it at one time because it was like, oh well, if you're going to be, if you're using GMRI to program stuff anyway, might as well get a Sprague and all that. But
yeah, because the PR4 can drive a train to test that what you've programmed is correct. And Nisi, yes, I know this is all over your head. The thing I would recommend to take in is just know that if there's something that you want to do that you can't do with what you have, there is likely something out there that can do it. Just ask.
Nisi, I was brand new to DCC a year ago.
I'm pretty new to DCC. I've only been doing it for about a year. There are guys on here like Boulder Creek Yard, James, who can explain DCC on a completely different level than I can. Somebody was joking about getting into a sniffer. There is a LocoNet sniffer built in here, this Digimon right here. This is a LocoNet sniffer that Digitrax puts out.
DCC confuses me.
Yeah, it's all...
So what's a sniffer? Digitrax, when you download the sound loader, it downloads that Digimon 2.0 as well.
So what somebody like me might use the sniffer for is, if you remember, I was having a problem with my Z-scale switches where when I'd hit the command once, it would send the command 4 times. And what a LocoNet sniffer would have done is it would have told me where that was occurring, where that issue was, so that I could have drilled down into that issue a little bit deeper. The other thing this sniffer would do is, if you're using something like DCC++, you could sniff the DCC system, not the LocoNet system, and you can... so here we go. A Sprog can work with a Pi, just Linux or Windows or even a Mac, yes. A Pi Sprog is a different product and can only work with a Pi. Right, yes. So you can't hook a Pi Sprog up to a Digitrax system, but if you're on your bench, and you have a Sprog and you're on your bench and you have a PR4 not connected to anything else, my understanding is that they're similar devices. Yeah, I think this is where is this coming? You have a real top of the tree expert here, but he isn't saying a lot, are you, James? So Boulder Creek Yard's getting called out. Stephen Earl, I just have a DCS240 and a double throw switch on an isolated program track. Drive engine on the program track and throw the switch to program side and do all the programming on the track to throw it. Yep, and that's a very, very, very common, setup. Very common way to do it. And apparently James feels that breakfast is more important than giving us the ins and outs of DCC.
Well,
so really,
food is important.
No, it's not. So really quickly, just kidding. Really quickly, the differences between DC and DCC in regards to running your railroads, and this is going to be very basic, and everyone can tell me I'm explaining it wrong because I'm going to explain it so basic. With DC, when your knob is all the way down at 0, there is 0 volts coming out.
Yeah,
as you
true.
Increase the knob and the voltage rises on DC, the motor in your locomotive goes faster and slower.
Yeah. I'm DCC, aren't I? I'm DC.
That's your DC.
Yeah.
On DCC, there is a constant voltage coming out, but that voltage... I'm sorry.
You're right. Keep going.
Well, I'm not right. It's not constant voltage though, because it's actually it's a pulse width modulated voltage. It's a constant voltage out. It's like 14 volts out. For simplicity's sake, DCC is 14 volts out, but there's a like telegraph like signal that is riding on that voltage. So it's 14 volts, but it's like going really, really fast. And it's that that tells your decoder what to do. I think that's probably about the simplest way to explain it.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, it has power and signal at the same time.
Yeah. Nisi, and I know you're hesitant to do this. But if you ever want to figure something out, or you're ever having a problem, you're more than welcome to either like come on my channel and come up on screen and we'll walk you through it together. Or if you want to do a live stream and just let me know and I'll jump in the chat and we'll walk you through it. Feel free to do a live stream and Judas, how does DC work? It goes DDD Thank goodness this is recorded. I need to see and hear the DCC explanation again. Maybe I'll put that in a YouTube short. DCC is DDD. Yeah, that's too funny. Thanks. If you ever put a DC engine on a DCC track, you can hear the pulses. Isn't that kind of cool? And I'm assuming that depends a little bit too on the DC motor, the size of the motor. If you're using HO scale, I bet you it's probably a little harder to hear than if you're using like N scale. Just because the motor's smaller and it can't absorb the square wave of the DCC signal as well. But I could be wrong.
Can you hear that?
Yep.
On this engine?
No.
No.
Oh, so here's one thing that I wanted to say. You were talking earlier that the reason you went with a Digitrax controller is because you wanted to use... Look at that. That is true. The N-scale engine I did this with was way louder. See? I completely made that up. And I got approval from a guy in Silicon Valley, so I feel very special. Edward was saying that the reason he went with a Digitrax controller is because he wanted to use Digitrax decoders. Theoretically, if all of the manufacturers are actually following NMRA DCC standards, it should not matter what brand DCC control system you're using with what brand DCC decoder you're using. Theoretically. Because if a NCE system is sending out the DCC standard commands, then it should work with the DCC decoder without issue. Okay,
There is one,
so
one exception I know of in HO.
What's that? Go for that, and then I'll get to Andy's comment.
ESU Lokesound, you gotta have their programmer.
Correct. That's for programming.
Yes.
That's not for changing CVs though. That's for adding sounds. You can still program CVs with it. The problem with the ESU decoders is they generally need more amperage than the usual programming tracks put out. So the ESU programmer gives more power and it allows you to add the sounds, which... But yes, you're correct. There are certain programming things that you need the specific... Like if I want to change the sounds of a Digitrax decoder, I need a PR4 or a PR3 or a PR4. Okay, so Andy says, I have two ZTC control desks, XBus 2, and I want to connect them into my NCE CAN bus. How do I do it?
Okay, you're speaking Greek to me, Andy.
So a ZTC XBus is XBus ExpressNet, or is XBus something different than ExpressNet? And the reason I'm asking that is, yeah, so here, ESU programs CVs fine on pretty much any system, but the extra power comes into their play when programming sounds. Okay. XBus is lens. Yes, so... so again, Andy, I mean, I hate to beat this dead horse, but I'm going to beat this dead horse just one more time.
Well, wouldn't it be a beating this dead iron horse?
It would be. It would be. So let me make this a little bigger. So a DigiKeys DR5000 command station, which is $200. It is compatible with Lens. It's compatible with Roku. It's compatible with Pico. It's compatible with Massoff. It's compatible with the Proto Throttle. It's compatible with ESU. It will be compatible with NCE. There are videos out there using a DR5000 on a CAN bus system. So if I were you, what I would probably do is get a DR5000 and use that as my main command station, and then I would have your NCE system off of the CAN bus side of the DR5000, and I would have your Lens set up off of the other side of the DR5000, and let the DR5000 manage the different protocols. Because that's what this box can do that other boxes can't do. This is version 4 and up. Their older stuff may have taken more power. Yeah. The ESU stuff is just power hogs, which makes sense. Standards would imply easy cohesion, but I find like works with like better. Example, the Z21 works fine with Markland trains, but Markland train control and track seems to work with its own stuff better. Yeah, and I hate to say it, but you are right. I do like the DR5000 works really well with all the Z21 stuff. The Z21 app, which is actually a really good app as well. Oh, I did not know this. HiSprogs can now use CAN bus. That's pretty cool. I did not know they did that. There is a company too. Manufacturers. Let me look. I just realized there is. We can look through this together. There is a company. I forget what the name is. Let's see if I can find it. Here it is.
Well, CAN bus is a standard in itself, if I remember correctly.
And this is where I'm going to need James from Boulder Creek. But isn't LCC based off of CAN bus or something? I forget. DCC for PC. Are they Railcom? No, that's not them. There is a manufacturer out there. Not DRM. Massoff is mostly for G scale. Yeah, there you go. Why is LCC using CAN bus and not LocoNet? I'm just curious. Not Murmur, not NCE, not Nix. Is it RR Circuits? So RR Circuits, I believe, is LCC. But one of them has like a CAN bus adapter. They have LCC buffers, so it's not them. So it looks like Iron Planet Hobbies has the Sprogs, if people are looking for Sprogs. See, so again here, a Sprog 3 standalone DCC programmer with power or whatever is $117.23. It's more expensive than the PR4. I don't know. LocoNex is Digitrax's. I thought CAN bus was proprietary as well. And I know Digitrax made LocoNet, but I know other manufacturers are doing things with LocoNet. I'm still trying to find, though, there's some company, not Sprague, Tam Valley, TCS. Is it Wi-Fi Tracks? what I'm still looking up Andy's question earlier. Oh, here you go.
LCC right there.
Yeah, but I don't know that it goes to lens. This is an NCE cab bus Wi-Fi interface, which is from Wi-Fi Tracks. So if you don't want to buy the NCE one, Wi-Fi Tracks makes them. Do you see though? People are like, "Why are we watching this?" Wi-Fi capacitor, Wi-Fi 4-block, Wi-Fi local controller, Wi-Fi DCC. I thought maybe it was them that made a lens to CAN bus. Andy, you know, I would honestly, I would I would send an email either to Ryan at Iron Planet Hobbies or to, is it Robert at DCC Train Automation? Which are you saying you can? Oh, it does more. Oh, yeah. It's yes. A Sprague you can actually run a full layout off of. It is a higher amperage device. I would not disagree with that statement. Steve says exactly. Oh, yes, correct. Yeah. They pay a licensing fee. That's true. CAN bus has various versions. You probably have CAN bus in your car. Oh, I didn't know that. So NCE CAN bus is not proprietary then.
That is
but if it is CAN bus, why is it in your car, not on a bus? See, I tell you, man, Steve's got some good questions.
Well, the thing is, it's called a bus because it is a bus is in itself. CAN, I believe, if I remember correctly, is an acronym for something, but I can't think what it is offhand.
Let's go to the resource that everybody knows and loves, Wikipedia. A
Ta-da.
controller area network, CAN bus, is a robust vehicle bus standard designed to allow microcontrollers and devices to communicate with each other's applications without a host computer. So the CAN bus, oh, look at this, Drew Dudes, man. Drew Dudes is popping it out as well.
He was just quicker.
Yes, you can plug it into Train Controller as well. There you go. How much does Train Controller cost? I know Train Controller is the software, I believe, right? Let's see, Train Controller. Train Controller. Let's see how much the software costs. Does anyone see the price? Download, shop. Understood. Please select my country. What country should we choose today? PQR, United Kingdom. I don't want that. USA. There we go. Okay.
I would have went with New Zealand, but
so which version, Andy, do you have? So Train Controller requires a computer and the software. The cheapest full version of Train Controller is real cheap compared to JMRI, but only if you value your time. Yes. So Train Controller bronze version, the cheapest version, is $154, and you would need a computer to run it on. Whereas the DR5000 is $200. If you got the silver or the gold version's up to $700. Hey, Lee, I'm muting you just because you're making a lot of noise. The full gold version of Train Controller is $700, plus you need a computer. Andy says, oh, don't you already have a computer? We have several computers, but the question is, with Train Controller, I assume you need a dedicated computer for your laptop because you would need to run it all the time. This is actually a funny comment. Train controller is real cheap compared to JMRI. Man, I've looked at iTrain, I've looked at Train Controller, I've looked at a bunch of those other ones because, yeah, it's a pricey dicey. It's pricey dicey. Boss America, if you robbed a bank and money was no longer an issue, but you can't live where you live any longer because you've now robbed a bank, where would you move?
Some place that didn't have an extradition treaty with the United States.
Well, he's in Australia anyway, so. So is there anybody at this point that's not completely confused and could completely care less about what we're talking about? Good, nobody. That's 1,400 in Australian dollars. Yep, need to rob a bank. Yeah.
DCC confuses me, Heath.
Yeah, well,
I'd love to go DCC with this, but most of my trains I run are all the old Triang.
yeah, and that's the thing. If you have all of those old trains that are DC, you're going to have to keep a DC system.
Yeah.
If you want to switch to DCC, look for one of the starter sets, and I would recommend a starter set that one of your friends and or somebody that can come over and help you with the system can come over. Yeah,
I've already looked. I'm looking at making the continuous loop that I've got on the layout, the one I'm running that train on now. I'm looking, that's a full loop. Track 2. That just goes completely round. I'm on about making that DCC.
A lot of people do that. They'll have one main line that's one, and then one's the other. And if you value your time at $20 an hour, how many hours would it take to learn JMRI from scratch? TC Gold is thus worth 45 hours of your time. Andy, I don't disagree with you at all. I would partially argue that this is a hobby, and I get enjoyment out of using my time, on and around the hobby. So I don't mind spending time on the hobby. If I'm going to spend money on the hobby, generally I would evaluate whether that $700 is worth it compared to, new locomotives or anything. But yeah, you're right. I mean, it's, if you're comparing your time to the money, then yes. But because it's a hobby, I tend not to include time when I'm making that calculation. The only reason I bought a computer is that Loc Programmer uses Windows. I had to buy Parallels. I had a Mac. But yeah. Well, and so Andy, here's the other thing is, I'm not going to do any of the Java or the Python programming. But if I'm going to use Decoder Pro and Panel Pro, then, JMRI is great. If I'm going to get into automated running, that's when I would probably definitely look to do something besides JMRI. But if I'm just programming decoders and I'm just, setting up a touch, excuse me as I fall over myself. If I'm just setting up a touch panel to run Panel Pro, JMRI is good for me. For me, that's for my choice. Stephen Rowe, what do you want it to do? There are some people out there like check out John PW22. If you reach out a guy to John PW22 is a guy that is doing things with JMRI that are just insane. But yeah, the basics are easy. I mean, Decoder Pro, Panel Pro, pretty straightforward. DBTech says it's dollars per fun, not dollars to value, which is true. I mean, I get that. Who just did a Steve Childers? Do you know anybody that just put out some basics JMRI videos?
Gee, that might have been me.
It's
I'm
still
working on it. And
yeah.
Robert Flying Pro did a whole series on operations, and which are really good. So how to set up the operations portion of it.
Yeah. Robert does. Tom Kovicek, I believe, has some JMRI stuff. I think Jimmy from DIY and Digital does.
And my part is I'm just doing the basic stuff. I'm not getting into like block detection and lighting. Not yet. I want to do the Decoder Pro. I know pretty well inside and out. I'm working on setting up operations now, which is all your rolling stock, all your locations, and you got to set up what trains you want and routes you want to set up.
If you're setting up some of those routes and stuff, like Boulder Creek's talking about the memory variables and usernames, it's like, yeah, that stuff can get, yeah.
Well, I haven't gotten that far. But the other thing is the Panel Pro is setting up the layout, all right, so that you can touch the screen, hit a turnout, and throw it, or use my mouse pointer to do the same thing on the 47-inch TV.
So John from Schuylkill River Valley just posted Steve Childers videos. He's got a whole series on, in general, they're shorter videos. They're all like just little tips and tricks videos that are really good. Just if, on, at this point, almost any subject out there.
Yeah, I did watch them. They are quite interesting. They give some good tips on that. Heath.
Yep. Yeah, Parallels added support for the M1 chip. I was just using Parallels recently, I should say. I got I'm using a PC because of the streaming stuff that I need to do. So I have both Macs and PCs, so I'm switching a lot of my my PC-based stuff to be on a PC just because I have one for streaming. But I think, a Mac, if you're a Mac person, again, technology is a tool, not as an obstacle. That's, yeah. So Tom's Trains and Things has a library. Here's Flying Crow's JMRI tutorial.
My camera's knackered up.
We can see that, Lee. So yeah, I mean, there's options. I'm gonna jump off in about 7 minutes. If anybody on panel and anybody in the chat has, what am I trying to say? Has contests, if you're near like a big milestone in your channel growth, if you've got some like interesting videos coming out that you think people would be interested in, please start posting those in the chat. And while we're waiting for those things to come in, Steve, we were just talking about your tips of the week, but is there anything else you would like to share with the group?
I'm trying to figure out, get some input, swing this around, what to do in that area under the monitor, right here. All right, I've got the shelf that lifts out, but that's what I'm working on next. I just got to figure out what I want to do with it.
Train related or? like workbench related,
Oh
like
no, that's a scene for the train. This
scene. Okay, yep.
yeah, it comes out and the workbench is underneath. So, and then my son and daughter-in-law got me the Walters Post Office for Father's Day. And for those that are familiar with Chicago, all right, that's the Eisenhower Expressway where it passes through what used to be the main Chicago post office. So I'm going to model something like that.
Good luck with those windows, Steve.
Oh, it's not going to be that detailed. I mean, the Walters kit's only 3 stories tall, so.
Well, you might need to get 2 of those Walters kit bash them together.
As a matter of fact, the second one's already on order, due here Monday.
There you go. There you go.
So.
Let's see. Boulder Creek Yard says he thinks he'll be back to making videos in the next week or 2. Marty's saying hello to everybody. Hello, Marty. It's not worth it, Heath. You're still above so much to live, like filling a closet with trains. I've got 2 closets full of trains. Don't jump from the 19th floor. That would hurt. I agree. None of the above started putting up some Teespring stuff. Mr. Dodge, if you want to support him, go get yourself a t-shirt of Matt Clark's. I'm guessing he's got some stuff in. Andy's saying this hobby here of ours has so many diverse channels of interest that you can go down. It's all really a case of following the route you most enjoy. And that's it. I love all of this stuff. Like this stuff is fun to me. I like the stuff, so that's I do the stuff. Where do we get the laser cannons for our trains? That's the advancements that I want. That actually sounds like it'd be pretty fun. Here's Tom's Trains and Things JMRI video if you're looking for Tom's videos. Geez, what a great show today, Heath. I've got to get on my forklift. Bernard, I hope you lift something with that thing. Awesome America, Model Railroad. I'll have a clip on making plug-and-play wire harnesses for tortoise motors, and I have a video on quick plugs on tortoise motors. I believe Awesome America Model Railroad's fairly new to my channel. If people haven't checked out his channel yet, please go over and see what he is up to. Edward, while we've got a little bit of a second, I don't know if you notice, Edward, but your video on this camera does flicker a little bit. I'm guessing that's your BlackBerry.
Yes, it's a BlackBerry that for some reason doesn't go. I'm trying to get it to go over USB, but I can't get it to work on USB. But I'm able to get it on Wi-Fi, so it might be the Wi-Fi
Gotcha.
that's screwing everything up. It's something that I'm experimenting with because of it's
I understand. It's a camera you have.
Yeah, the camera you have, and but I am it's one of those things of maybe next time I'll use the reason why I'm using the BlackBerry because it's not my phone now. I got
Yep.
And it's one of those things of, hey, it's instead of you might as well use it because I didn't throw it away.
Absolutely.
So
I wish I had some spare phones because phones make great cameras.
Yeah.
So absolutely.
So,
John just put up Awesome America Model Railroading's channel, Artie's channel. Artie, how many subscribers do you have right now? I'll let somebody else look it up. But if, let's see if we can get Artie some subscribers. He does the stuff he's doing with the tortoise motors is pretty interesting, and it would probably be interesting to several people. But so Edward, you got Digitrax modeling coming up tomorrow night.
Tomorrow night, we normally have somebody doing like a quick tip on whatever that they come up with, which is a sometimes it has to do with
And it looks like Edward hit the button. Did you hit the button, Edward, or did I hit a button?
You must have hit a button because I have the only buttons I have are the ones on this.
Anyway, sorry. Go ahead. Apparently you said something that somebody didn't like, and you got booted.
Apparently.
Try again.
Must have been the quick tips, I guess.
Yeah.
And then we also have what seems to be popular now is what we call build-alongs.
Yeah.
Where it's basically somebody is building a kit. Some of them are relatively simple. Some of them are a little on the more Rick and Maureen from Hunter Line. They're doing one of their King Post bridges, which there's a lot of parts. Basically you're given a bunch of pieces of wood, and then it's like, here, make a bridge out of it. And then we also have Martin from O Scale Trains. He turns around and basically teaches people how to scratch build stuff. And there is a bunch. It's a channel for people who want to learn on how to actually model, not just throwing the. Remember there was one time there was a big huge discussion between toy trains and models, and it wound up going a lot longer than originally anticipated. But it is one of those things of this is more of a modeling channel, encouraging people to model, actually build and model stuff instead of just buying it and going from that direction.
Yep, gotcha.
So,
awesome.
7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time.
One other thing, Andy started mentioning it, so I'll bring it up as well. The NMRA is having their national convention coming up on July 6th. You do not need to be a member of the NMRA to join the national convention. So $49 for 80 hours of content. While the content is available out there, the big advantage of going to the convention is that after a presentation, you can go into a Zoom room with the clinician, and you'll be able to ask questions in like a live, back and forth sort of scenario. So it's virtual, but it's not just, just watching. There's going to be interaction stuff as well.
Yeah, it's not going to be just a webinar.
Yeah, correct. Yep. Boulder Creek Yard during the convention, SVL will be having a remote ops session. There you go. But not sure which day of the convention. The convention is 5 days. So it's like 80 hours of content over 5 days, plus all of the just regular rooms that people can just come into and hang out. So yeah, thank you so much for, to everyone that supports the channel, and, thank you everyone for coming and listening to me ramble about a subject that I know can very easily lose people sometimes. Check out the other live streams that are going to be going on this afternoon. I believe Anthony Dodge is going on. There's a whole slew of people that live stream Friday nights. I'll be back Sunday night. I think that we're going to do mostly a Q&A where people can kind of ask, no political, no religion, no like those kind of questions, but like pretty much whatever any other questions people want to ask. So on that note, I'm going to head out of here, and thank you so much, everyone, for coming.
One quick question observation.
You ruined my ending, Edward.
I'm sorry. But no, the way I look at it is I would use DC as sort of as for diagnostics, just to make sure everything runs first, and then going on to DCC.
Edward, you're going back to a topic that we were talking about 10 minutes ago now.
Well, I wasn't paying attention because I was trying to get my stuff working.
Well, now it was like a perfect ending to a stream. Now I've got to go back and redo my whole ending again, and there's 26 people now watching that I got to redo the ending for.
It's all about humanity. It's all about humanity. It's all about humanity. About humanity. It's all about humanity. About humanity. It's all about